Close your eyes. You're about to step through a door that hasn't been opened in 2,000 years. The year is about 20 AD on a limestone hillside in Lower Galilee. The village is Nazareth, maybe 400 people, and the house is nothing like the pictures from childhood books. It is part cave and part construction, carved directly into the rock. A builder lives here, a Tecton with his wife and a son in his 20s. The air smells of earth and smoke. Before dawn, the sounds are quiet and close. When that son looks down at his hands, he sees calluses that come from stone, not sawdust. This picture is not guesswork. In 2006, archaeologist Yardina Alexander excavated a small 1st-century dwelling beneath the International Maran Center in Nazareth. It had 2 rooms, a central courtyard, and a cistern cut into bedrock, precisely the time and place of Jesus. Beneath the Sisters of Nazareth convent, archaeologist Ken Dark investigated a rock-cut courtyard house from the early Roman period. One room survived to full height, with its original rock-cut doorway and fragments of a chalk floor. Later, Byzantine and Crusader Christians venerated that site, pointing to a long tradition that linked this home with the Holy Family. These are excavated homes from Jesus' Nazareth. Forget the freestanding wooden cabin. In Nazareth, the soft local bedrock, called nari, let families cut rooms into the hillside. Natural stone walls were supplemented with stacked field stones and earth and straw mortar. The village was small, maybe 50 houses spread across 4 acres, yet it stood within an hour's walk of Sepharus, which Josephus called the ornament of Galilee. That city was a Greco-Roman center with banks, markets, theaters, and major building projects. Keep that in mind. Now walk through a day. Before sunrise, the first thing inside that rock-cut room is darkness. The windows are narrow slits high on the wall, Egyptian style, built for ventilation and privacy, not light. A thin grey begins to seep in. Underfoot is packed dirt or chalk fragments swept smooth. The family sleeps on reed mats laid on the floor. Cloaks double as blankets, a practice protected in the Torah because a poor person needed that garment to sleep. There are no beds in the modern sense. Timber beams hold a flat roof overhead. The aroma is stone and smoke. Last night's olive oil lamp left soot that clings to everything because those small clay lamps produced more smoke than light. Step into the courtyard and the house comes alive. This open space is where daily life happens. The rhythmic scrape of a hand mill starts before sunrise, a woman grinding barley into flour for the day's bread. The courtyard floor is packed earth or rough paving. Against one wall sits a domed clay oven called a tabun. Pottery jars hold grain, oil, and dried legumes. Reed baskets hang from wooden pegs to keep pests away. A goat might be tethered nearby. Chickens scratch through the dust. Most important is the cistern, bell-shaped and cut several meters into limestone, fed by winter rainwater channeled from the flat roof through stone gutters. Before water enters the cistern, it passes through a sedimentation basin so silt can settle. The walls are lined with hydraulic plaster, a mix of lime, ash, and crushed pottery that prevents seepage. Every drop the family drinks, cooks with, or uses to clean comes from rain they captured. Excavations at the International Maran Center reveal exactly this design. That is how people survived in Nazareth. Women spend much of the day here, fetching water from the village well early, grinding grain, baking flatbread in the tabun, with fuel from dried animal dung or olive pulp, spinning thread, weaving cloth where the light is best, caring for children, and maintaining ritual purity according to Jewish law. The courtyard is a symphony of grinding stone, low conversation, the cluck of chickens, and the smell of bread and smoke. Meanwhile, the Tecton is at work. The word often translated as carpenter actually means builder, a craftsman who works with wood, stone, and sometimes metal. In Galilee, timber is scarce. Limestone is everywhere. Most of a Tecton's projects involve stone. Picture a work site, not a tidy shop. Blocks lie in various stages of shaping. Iron chisels and bronze tools rest on a low Roman-style bench because craftsmen often sit while they work. The air shimmers with limestone dust. The ring of iron on stone carries across the hillside. Iron is costly, so a Tecton's adze, chisels, mallet, handsaw, plumb line, and bow drill are treasured and often handed from father to son. Work is steady. Sepharus is 4 miles away, about an hour's walk, and when Herod Antipas rebuilt it as his capital around 4 BCE, the Forum, paved streets, public buildings, and a theatre created a regional construction boom. That means encounters with Roman officials, Greek merchants, and laborers from across the Mediterranean were part of ordinary life. Hear familiar words with this in mind. Everyone who hears these words and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. That is not abstract poetry. That is professional vocabulary. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone would sound like insider language to a Tecton. Calloused hands come from gripping stone, from guiding chisels, from lifting blocks. By midday, the work pauses for a meal. There is no table and no chairs. A reed mat is spread on the courtyard floor. A clay dish holds lentil stew flavored with salt, onion, and garlic. Flatbread is torn into pieces. A cup of wine is diluted with water. Maybe there are olives and a few dried figs. This is the Mediterranean triad of bread, wine, and olive oil, with bread supplying most of the calories. Scholars estimate that 50 to 70% of an ordinary person's daily intake came from bread. In Hebrew and Aramaic, to eat bread simply meant to eat a meal. In Galilee, bread is usually barley, dense and slightly bitter, the grain of the poor. Wheat is for special days. Legumes like lentils and chickpeas, vegetables like cabbage and leeks, wild greens, and dried fruits fill out the diet. Dairy from goats and sheep appears mostly in spring and summer. Fish from the Sea of Galilee is common, especially for the Sabbath. Meat is rare except for festivals. Bone analysis from the region confirms a low-protein, plant-heavy diet. Meals happen twice a day, a light midday meal and a larger one in the evening. Before anyone eats, the head of the household speaks a blessing. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Afterward comes the Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals, thanking God for food and land. When Jesus taught, "Give us this day our daily bread," it was literal, bread is survival. And at the Last Supper, taking bread, giving thanks and breaking it was something done thousands of times before. A lifelong practice was transformed, not invented. As evening falls, the family goes up. The roof is flat and built with timber beams laid across the walls, a layer of cane on top, then a thick earth plaster mixed with ash and lime. Workers compact it with a heavy stone roller until it feels like a hardened surface. A low parapet wall runs around the edge, a safety required by the Torah. Here food dries, thread is spun, and people sleep during hot months. Here is where solitude can be found. Under the stars, the Shema is recited. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. These words are prayed in the evening and in the morning, a rhythm for a lifetime. In Acts, Peter goes up on a roof to pray, which makes perfect sense in homes like these. Once a week, everything stops. As the sun sets on Friday, lamps are lit and the Sabbath begins. From that moment until Saturday sunset, there is no grinding, no building, no carrying, no commerce. The village grows quiet. In a small place like 1st century Nazareth, the synagogue gathering likely meets in the largest available room until a building is established. The Torah is read in Hebrew and explained in Aramaic. Prayers are recited, the Shema is spoken together. The Gospels say he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath, as was his custom. This is home. Archaeology also uncovers limestone vessels, cups, bowls, and jars made of chalkstone rather than clay. Stone does not become ritually unclean under Jewish law, so it can be washed and reused. Choosing stone vessels shows intentional devotion. These families were not only poor, they were devout. Step back and take in the whole picture. The dark room at dawn, the reed mat on a packed floor, smoke from a little oil lamp, the courtyard alive with grinding, baking, and water gathered drop by drop, the worksite ringing with iron on rock, a shared meal, the blessing spoken, the rooftop sky and the Shema on faithful lips, the quiet of Sabbath and the gathering of neighbors, a home carved into a hillside where God chose to live among ordinary people. When he said, "I am the bread of life," he had broken barley loaves in a house where bread meant survival. When he said, "I am the living water," he had drawn from a cistern and watched the rains fill it. When he said, "I am the light of the world," he knew rooms so dark that a single lamp mattered. The parables sound like memory because they are. Does seeing this house change how you hear his words?